I want you all to know to stay strong. Stay strong, because I talked about this numerous times where the enemy is going to put pressure on you. The enemy is going to do everything in your power to make you turn against God. He's going to do everything in your power to try and get you to turn away from what it is that you believe in, to get you to compromise. And when an enemy cannot get you to sin, when the devil cannot get you to go into sin or to turn away from God and reject God, he'll create a huge offense in your life, or he'll start to cause you to doubt. He'll try to come up with something that will make you doubt God's goodness and doubt God's love or doubt God's power or doubt that God is who he says he is. He'll try to come up with something to make you doubt God's word. Now, I've been battling through this for a while, because I'm going to tell you something. I have a lot of blockages all over my channel. What I mean by blockages is spiritual veils. People have gotten together and they've done sourcing. And most of the people who are subscribed to my channel are not here because they're watching the videos. I have over 850 subscribers on this channel, and I can guarantee you probably 90% of them are just here to stifle my voice, to monitor my channel, and to put out sorcery. They're putting out veils to block my messages. Half of them don't even look at these videos. I have probably on an average of 20 views, if I get that, 10 to 20 views per video. Sometimes I will get a significant amount of views, but it's not about the views. It's about the fact that my voice has been stifled because people do not want you to know the truth. Now, those of you who are on here, I'm going to let you know the truth. I'm going to let you know the truth because, see, God's going to reward every man according to his works. So you can sit here and you can stifle my voice. You can hide my channel. You can block it up all you want to. But guess, believe this. There is going to be a price to pay for every single thing you have done. You might cover it up. I talked to this about it before. You harden your heart like a Pharaoh. But guess what happened to Pharaoh? Guess what happened to Pharaoh? And I'm going to tell you, I sat here. For 15 years, I sat here. Yes, God told me. He told me to become a wife. When I first came back to him, he told me, sit at home and focus on being a mother to your children. Taught me how to become a better woman, because I did not know how to be a woman. I'm going to be honest with you. I did not know how to be a woman. A lot of us do not know how to be a woman. It's not that I was not taught to be a woman. See, my mother, she was an independent woman. She's what you can call someone who did everything on her own. Not that she wanted to, but it was the type of man that she had. And her mother was the same way. And so when you're in a generation, when you have a generation of women, especially in the Black society or the Black culture, when we have a generation of strong-willed women who are made to do everything on their own because their men were emasculated, a lot of times it's not by the choice of the men, but it's by the choice of what's happening in society. When the men are emasculated and it's a part of the agenda, and men can no longer work or take care of their families, or they're separated from their families for some reason, and it's not voluntarily done, then the women are now forced to take care of the children and run the household on their own. And so when they finally do get a man who comes along, it's hard for them to submit, especially if that man is not treating them right. So I talked about this before. My mother, when she married, she was young, okay? She was 16 years old when she got married because she had me as a young mother. She was forced into a marriage because they did not want her to basically, back then, they felt if a woman was if a woman was pregnant, the man was supposed to marry her. So neither my mother or father wanted to marry each other. But since they had gotten pregnant, since they were both not really even taught about sex, my father said basically he thought that if he only had sex one time, the woman couldn't get pregnant. He thought it took multiple times. And back then, there was not much education about sex and pregnancy. So my father ended up having sex with my mother one time, and she was a virgin. And they got pregnant with me. They conceived me. My father was forced to marry my mother. They did not want to get married. They were very young. My father was I think he was about 18 or 19 years old. My mother was 16. She was still in high school. And so my father, basically, he had his mindset on doing certain things. He wanted to play ball. He wanted to live his life. He was still young. And as you know, a man, he's emotionally immature. A lot of times men mature emotionally a lot later than women do. Women, they obtain their emotional maturity also because we have the responsibilities of things we have to deal with, and we're made that way. We're made that way. So men mature a lot later. And this is why a lot of times you'll see an older man with a younger woman. So my father was not ready to be a husband. He was not ready to be a father. And so he played around. He did things he did. He wanted to do things for himself. So my mother was basically, she was young and she was forced to go to school. She had to get herself to school. She had to pay all the bills on her own, and she had to take care of me. She took care of me. She did what she could to help with me. My father was there, and he contributed in the ways that he could. But on top of that, he was being emasculated by a society of women. And we call this, when they're filled with this controlling spirit, a lot of times you hear this called Jezebel, but a lot of times when a woman is put in a role where she's is able to lead, when a man has basically been forced to be emasculated, or he's apathetic to the point where he is not able to take on certain responsibilities, the woman now has to step up to the plate. And a lot of times these women can become very resentful, and they can become very controlling and domineering to the point where they want to now dominate the man because they're resentful that the man is not stepping up in his role. So basically, to punish this man, they will diminish his authority and they will diminish his masculinity. And so this is what has been happening. So I come from a long generation of women who were able to lead in relationships because we always, and it got to a point where it was like a generational curse, because we all ended up following the pattern of the woman who are our preceding generation. So basically, when you follow the pattern of your ancestors, that is what happens. It's a generational curse, because the women felt that the men were not doing what they were supposed to do. So they no longer respected the men. They felt the men were trivial in their sight. And so they came into the place where they wanted to devalue the men's authority and diminish it. And then when they gave the men opportunity to lead, the men did not lead the way they wanted them to. So they still had to do everything on their own. And so we ended up looking for men. Naturally, we found men who basically allowed this behavior because these men themselves were emasculated. And so, yes, I did not know how to be the nurturing, loving, submissive wife, because I thought when I saw my mother paying all the bills and my father lying around and doing what he wanted to do, not working and holding a job, not taking care of the bills, not teaching me how to be a good, not teaching me anything, basically. I thought that, well, wow, my mom goes to work. She pays all the bills on her own. She's an independent woman. And I thought that's what it means to be an independent woman, a woman who does not need a man to take care of her for anything, a woman who now is her own protector. She stands up for herself. When she's confronted with other men, she knows how to stand up for herself. She fights back. It becomes to the point where she can be what they call argumentative. But no, it's just this woman, what she sees is her defending herself. Because if she doesn't, people are going to take her for weakness. They're going to take her inability to defend herself as someone who's able to be stepped all over. They're going to look at her as some docile, weak woman who people can now mistreat and do what they want to. And they're going to take advantage of her. And this also happens when you see a woman who's not protected by a man to the point where the men have abused them and has sexually assaulted them and have emotionally mistreated them, because these men themselves did not know how to be men. They did not know how to take care of the women who were in their lives. They did not know how to appreciate them, because they themselves did not have a father or a strong male role model or figure around them to tell them and lead them in the right way. And so basically what I saw, like I said, I saw my mother resent my own dad. I saw her come home and speak to him in ways that basically a woman should not probably be speaking to her own husband. But my father had taken on this role as now he was acting as a child, my mother's son, and not her husband. So this means that my father himself had already been emasculated by all the things that were going on around him. There's a lot of things that there are a lot of characteristics and things in society that has emasculated black men, specifically slavery. And you might think that slavery does not contribute to that, but this behavior has perpetuated. Things that have happened in our generations, our previous generations, our preceding generations have basically contributed to how things are going on right now. It contributes to how our society is shaped in the present and future. And so by my father being one of these emasculated beings and did not have a father himself, he basically acquiesced to my mother's domination and control, meaning he allowed her to pay the bills. He allowed her to run the household. He allowed her to basically run the relationship. He came home and he asked her for money. He asked her to give him money when he wanted. He allowed her to pay the bills. He allowed her to work multiple jobs because he didn't even want to get one. He wanted to go out and do what he wanted to do that appeased him. And this is why you'll see men who want to go out and play sports or watch sports, sit around all day or watch TV or play video games. And I'm not saying this to bash anyone. I'm trying to get you to a point where this whole thing starts. Then you see women who end up resenting these men And my mother was very disrespectful to my own father in front of my face. And sometimes this made me feel disrespectful to my own dad, and I resented my own father. I began to taunt him and say things about him, or I would talk about him to my friends behind his back, and I would call him a vagabond because these are things that I heard. I saw the disrespect of how he allowed my mother to work multiple jobs and would not even help her with one bill. And she would come home tired, and he would want sex from her and get upset because she didn't want to give him sex. But she just spent all these hours working on a job and paying bills, and then have to come home and cook your dinner and clean up the house by herself. You couldn't even do anything to pick up a dish. And this is what is happening in our society. And so when you see this, you see women who grow up like me, young ladies, who see a strong, domineering, independent woman who has a emasculated husband or spouse or boyfriend or someone around them, then you say, oh, well, obviously, either I'm going to be an independent woman, I'm going to get a man who I can dominate and emasculate and control, and I'll pay all the bills, and he'll sit at home and I'll tell him what to do, and I'll run the household and disrespect him in front of the kids. Or I don't need a man at all. If a man can't take care of me, I don't need a man. And so then you have a state of rebellion where a woman does not want to submit to any man because they feel like, what do I need a man for? I can pay my own bills. I can do whatever I want to do. I don't need a man. I'm not going to listen to a man's authority. And then you have men on the other hand saying, oh, well, I'm not going to marry a woman who's dominating. I'm not going to marry a woman who has a domineering personality because she does not know how to submit. But when you have a generation of young women who have grown up with dominating women who are very strong, and they were made to be the breadwinners, meaning they had to get all the money. They had to acquire all the jobs and pay all the bills. They were responsible for everything. They had to defend themselves. This is what you get. And so I tried to become that when I came back to God, because for a while I had always picked all these men who I had to take care of them. And I cried out to God one day. I said, Lord, why do I keep picking men like this? Because I thought this was acceptable. I thought it was okay for me to get a man who they would say is a bum. I thought it was okay for me to pick these type of men because I looked at my own father. I looked at my own example that I had in my life and my own mother and all the men who gravitate towards me because I was a strong woman. And this is where you will see these type of men will gravitate towards these strong women. And then they'll make babies with these women. And then they cannot take care of these women because they themselves cannot get a job, or they themselves might have certain flaws and issues, or they don't want to accept and own up to the responsibility. So they allow these women to basically take over, and the women bash them so much to the point where they say, hey, either I'm going to keep dealing with this or I'm just going to walk away because I feel like you don't need me no way. And that's what these men say. They say, well, the woman can do it all by herself. She can take care of the child. The woman can pay the bills. She can kick me out the house anytime she wants to because this is her house. It's not my house. I'm not contributing to anything because this is a strong woman. And so they walk away and they leave the mother to raise the kids on their own. So now you have these single women. You have a society of single mothers. And then you have these women who now want to settle down because they're tired. They're overwhelmed. They're tired of taking care of the bills by themselves. They're tired of raising their children by themselves. But then they say, wait a minute. Now you got a group of other men who have somehow had the right role model in their lives. They have had the right men in their lives. They have had the right mindset and value, but they say, I'm not going to take a woman who has children with other men. Where are those men? Go find the daddies. But these daddies were not the right ones, and they did not know that because, see, they thought that when they picked a man who was like this, they thought they were being a strong, independent woman like their mothers, but they understand now that they were not. And so then when these women try to change, for example, like me, I sat home. God was showing me how to break that mold and not be a dominating woman, not to be a aggressive woman, as they call them, or a masculine woman who emasculates men, but one to be submissive and loving. I took on that role, and God had me sitting at home, learning how to be a mother, learning how to take care of the household, learning how to cook. I was getting recipes. I acquired many recipes. I was looking online. I began to dress in a feminine manner. I began to take care of my body. I began to watch what I eat. I lost all of this weight, and I became the woman that God said is the virtuous woman in the Bible, the woman that he who finds a wife now found a good thing because he has that woman. But guess what happened to me? And see, people don't want you to hear this, but there have been people who hijacked my life. There have been people who came along and used sorcery. There was a man in specific who used sorcery to destroy everything about me from head to toe. Violated my body and wanted to cover it up. There are people who ganged up together against me. People, even in my own family, who were jealous because God was using me, and they ganged up together. They did sorcery and witchcraft, caused my whole and everything to be destroyed. So I started, God, basically, when this man had done this and taken and violated me, God says, hey, guess what? I'm gonna change this destiny around. Because, you see, you might have a purpose in life, but see, when people take things from you, like I said in the previous video, when people take things, God now has to recreate your destiny. He'll have a new purpose for you. And see, God can change that destiny around. But see, that's what God tried to do with me. He told me, go ahead, be a mother, be a wife, write these books. But he started sending me around to neighborhoods, and he started showing me the bondage that was over the Black Americans in this country. They were over the poor people. And I began to see things. I began to talk about things. I began to pray. I'd done spiritual warfare, but the agents of Satan came into my life. And they wanted to stop me. They devised a plan to stop me and to destroy me. They destroyed me. They destroyed my children. They did everything in their power to blacklist me. They did everything in their power to try to make me seem as if I was crazy. They did everything in their power to stop me from having what it was that God was meant for me, which was my husband, which was my ministry, which was the success that he had for me. And so I sat here at home alone. I sat here, my body was destroyed. After I lost all the weight and worked hard, they had put out spells and everything, and I gained all this weight, and I could not lose the weight. I mean, I can lose a little bit of weight, but I could never get back to that weight, that shape I was supposed to be in. And then you hear men talking about, oh, women have to be a certain weight. Women have to be this, women have to be that. And like I talked about it in the previous video, we're not going to jump through these hoops anymore. What we're going to learn how to do is love ourselves. But what I want to say specifically, I sat here after God changed me and molded my thinking, even though it was indoctrinated in me to be a strong woman. It was indoctrinated in me to dominate a man. God had made me a submissive woman to prepare for a husband. He had made me a woman who was ready for a mate. He made me wife material. But due to the enemy getting in the way, due to all these preconceived notions of certain men, certain individuals in society, I was not able to find a mate. And so I sat at home for years, and I got jobs. And when I was on the jobs, God used me again to expose things that were going on, to pray for his people who are in bondage. Because as you know, this has perpetuated throughout society, especially throughout the Black community. And I fought for years. And as a result, they retaliated against me on the jobs. I talked about this in my other videos when I talked about how they treat you on the jobs. I talked about it, and I could not keep a job for a long period of time. I could not keep a job for, the most I could keep a job was about 3 months to a year, or 3 to 6 months usually. But there was a specific person, and a lot of people will want to cover this up. There's a specific person who was sent as an agent by Satan to basically lead an onslaught of attacks against me and my life. His entire coven came up against me. His entire network came up against me. And they fought against me and my children. My children were removed from the home. I lost so much. I could not work. So I sat at home. I could not get my husband. I could not work. And I'm at the point where it's too late to start a new career. It's too late to get married. I'm not even looking for a husband anymore. The thing is, I want justice. I want justice. And you know why I want justice? Because my life was stolen from me. Just like the earrings that fall on my ear. My earrings fall on my ear every day. Every day I lose an earring. And God knows that there are a lot of people in the background who have been stealing from me, who have been stealing from many of you people. He knows what has been done. And a lot of you, like I said, there are people on this channel who will cover up everything. They will cover up everything. They will come here and cover up everything. But see, God is going to bring forth justice. I'm waiting for his specific time where he's going to bring forth justice. Because see, I have been sitting in a position where I have not been able to work. And God told me to basically focus on taking care of my children and being a wife material so that I could meet a husband. There are some mothers who do. There are some women who do have children who men will accept them. And there was the right man who was supposed to come across my path, but someone intervened in that. Someone who's on an agenda for Satan intervened in that, and I could not get married to the man I was supposed to get married to. They destroyed my body. They destroyed me from head. So people have hijacked they have taken and stolen things from me, taken my entire life, taken my ministry and destroyed it. They put up veils on my channel, put up veils on my books and everything, stopped my books from selling because they did not want the truth to be exposed. All the truth that I show and talk about things that have been going on in this country, things that have been going on within the Black community and within the poor and people who have been oppressed. They've done everything to stifle my voice. And as a result, I've lived in poverty. I've lived a life of poverty. I've lived a life of bondage. And I know I'm not saying this to get sympathy, because I'm not on here looking for sympathy. I'm on here to speak the truth, because there's going to be justice. Every man is going to be rewarded according to their works. I'm telling you this right now. Every man. This is the last days. We're in the book of Revelation. So if you can look at the time and judge the times, it talks about this in Revelation. We are in the last days. We don't know. God can come as a thief in the night at any moment. And many of you will have to answer for what you have done and what you have not done when God told you to do what he told you to do. And there have been people who have come across my path and they have stolen from me. They knew they were supposed to help me. I sit in a house right now. We had the last few days were the coldest days of this year. They were very cold. It was probably 8 degrees outside on one of those days. And I sit here in a home right now where I don't have any heat. There's no central heat in this home. I have 2 portable heaters that I can put on at a time, and it was still freezing in this house. We don't even have hot water because the hot water heater was broken. It's broken, and they have not fixed that either because they wanted to move me out of this house. We don't have a working oven. We have a stove top. We don't have a working oven. And so we were freezing in this house. And I've been trying to leave this house for a while now. For several months, I've been trying to get out of this house ever since they failed the inspection. And I have a Section 8 voucher because, like I said, I have not been able to work. I was told to sit at home. I did not get a husband to take care of me, but I had a man who came in and violated me. And I sat here. And every time I tried to look for a place, every time someone reaches out to me to give me a place, all of a sudden they back out because, see, this elite organization that is retaliating against me because of the work that I've done for God's kingdom, they have not allowed anyone to rent anything out to me. So, yeah, when people sit here and say that basically a dominating woman, when you send up all these video messages across my channel or my feed, all these messages come up about how a woman cannot be overweight or a woman cannot be domineering or a woman has to have herself together, all these different things where men decide what they want from a woman. A lot of times when things happen to people, you don't know what happened in the background, what happened to cause that. But like I said, I would have not been in this state in the first place had these people not come in my life and did what they did to me. I would not have been in this state. But I'm in this state right now. And like I said, I sit in a house right now. I sit in a house with 2 portable heaters. I sit in a house with my son who has to now get a GED because there have been people who have retaliated against him, have destroyed his entire education, and hijacked his destiny. Just like they have hijacked everything from me and stole my life, and I cannot get my husband, I cannot get married. And these people know who they are. You can sit up here and put blockages, as many veils you want on my channel, but guess what? God already knows what you've done. He's the one you have to worry about. So you can hide everything from man. You can hide everything from whoever else, but what you can't hide it from is God. You can't hide that from him. You can't hide anything from him. So I might not be on here making videos for much longer because my videos have been blocked. My ministry has been stifled. Everything that God had for me was stolen and taken and hijacked. There have been people who have tapped into my knowledge and my brain. I was a very intelligent woman. God had given me and blessed me with communication skills for a specific purpose. And there have been many of you who have stolen things. You still steal things to this day. And you think it's funny. You bind yourselves to people's souls instead of going to God. And he knows that you don't want them. I don't understand why, to this day, why God allowed that to happen. I asked God numerous times. I said, Lord, why did you let these people do this to me? Why did you let them hijack my life? Why did you let them steal from me? Why did you let them bind themselves to me and take every single thing? But see, what matters now, because our life is not our own, what matters is that when we leave this earth, that's when our life truly begins for eternity. So what matters is not what happens to you here on this earth. See, that's where God's trying to get us to understand. What matters is what's going to happen to you when this earth is over and done with. And so all you little men who sit on this channel mad because you got a woman who showed you up because you didn't do what you're supposed to have done. Where were you about 15 years ago when I was sitting out there in the field doing all the hard work when me and my children were suffering, when God had to disrupt my life? Basically, the things I was supposed to have had, I had to go around from all these churches, schools, communities, neighborhoods, and basically do spiritual warfare because there were many people who were fighting, but they were not fighting in spiritually. They were not in submission to God, and they were not obedient. They got their money and their education, their wealth, and they got all these things, but they were not obedient to God. They did not want to listen to him and pick up their cross and do what it is he told them to do, so he had to use a woman, a domineering woman. And then when women step into a role that a man himself would not assume that role that was meant for him and created for him and designed for him, you get upset at the woman and you want to blame her for being too masculine because now she's showing up something where you have fallen short. And see, this is where God was showing me. So you might want to block up my channel and you might disagree that I said women can be a minister. I really don't care at this point. All I care about is my soul being saved and those few who do want their souls to be saved. That's it. The rest of you, those who don't want it, you have to deal with God. That doesn't hurt. That doesn't bother me. It does not bother me. But what does bother me is that I lost the life that God had meant for me to have. Because there were people who came along and they did the work of Satan. And they wanted to hide their own deeds, their own improprieties, their own shortcomings and the things that they had done. And they did everything in their power to retaliate against me. They did everything in their power to stifle me, did everything to hijack things from me, steal things from me. And this is what God is talking about. You are who he's going to reward according to your works. And there are many people who will suffer just like me. They might not be on YouTube, and they might not have the voice or the courage to even speak about what was done to them. And then believe me, I have that courage because it's only God who gives me the strength and that courage. And yes, every day I sit here and I go back and forth wondering, Lord, I had to fight and struggle to keep my salvation because there's so much pressure, because I look at how my life was wasted. I mean, I know my life is important. God's work got done. His purpose got done. That's all that matters. But sometimes when I look at my life, I think, wow, I wake up every day and I look around and I feel like, Lord, my life, but nothing was accomplished. Nothing was accomplished because of these people who have fought so hard to stop everything that God was doing inside of me. And so I want to let you know that there's going to be a reward. Everyone's going to get a reward for everything they've done, whether good or bad. I talked about this before. So you can put up blockages on this channel, and you've gotten much warning, and you can harden your heart because many of you will not go to God. You won't come back until it's too late. People are dying every day. God put out all kinds of things. People have lost their lives. I heard over 70-some people have died with this past snowstorm. And it's happening all over. And God is talking, and people still will not hearken. You still holding on to your little stuff. Sons of Belial. See, God told me what a son of Belial is. And see, he showed me a son of Belial. And you remember Nabal in the Bible and David. See, God will reward a person who helped. Many of you were put in position to help certain people, and you chose not to help them because you said, oh, why should I give them my money? Why should I help them? Not knowing that everything you get is a blessing from God. Whether you stole it or not, God allows you to have it. When he gives you breath, that comes from him. It says everything comes from God. God gives man the ability to obtain wealth. And when you sit here and you don't want to help someone, especially a person of God, guess what? God can take everything from you, and he will. He's going to look at you. He's going to ask you. Because see, it talks about that in the Bible. When he says, when you do it to the least of these, that's what you have done it to me. And when you did not do it to them, when he tells you, they said, when did we see you hungry? When did we not feed you? When did we see you thirsty, not give you anything to drink? When did we see you needing a place of shelter and we did not take you in? Many people are going to hear these words when they get ready to stand before God on judgment day. He's going to say, depart from me, I do not know you. Because you sat here and you said, well, I ministered for you, Lord. I did this, but you do not have true love for the people who are suffering. Not just myself, his servant, as servant of his who did his work, should be. Basically, we should have had whatever we needed. There was no reason for me and my children to be in this situation, especially when we have done all this work for God's kingdom. The people were supposed to help us. His church was supposed to help us. But many of his church, they're not even real. They're ravening wolves sitting up in the church with antichrist spirits inside of them, hearkening to their own ways, hearkening to the ideologies and the ways of men, spouting propaganda and whatever the enemy puts inside their heads, pretending that they're truly of God, but they're false prophets and false apostles, false servants. These are not God's people. Those who are truly his people, many of them have been suppressed. They have been put in captivity and bondage. But I'm letting you know here today, don't give up. God wants you to give up. Do not give up. Do not give the enemy the satisfaction. Because guess what? You are going to get the last laugh with God. You are going to get the last laugh on the day of judgment when God comes back and he destroys the wicked with his church.